The Celeron was a name spoken in hushed tones across the galaxy. For centuries, no one dared approach the legendary ship, and those who tried had never returned. Stories of its power, of its eerie presence, and of the mysterious disappearance of entire fleets had turned the ship into a dark legend. The Celeron was not just any starship. It was a weapon, an ancient one, and it had been left to drift alone in the vast expanse of space. No one knew where it came from or who had built it, but every civilization in the galaxy shared one thing in common: a deep, lingering fear of the ship. For years it had been abandoned in the darkest part of the galaxy, far from any major trade routes, and no one dared venture close. It was a ship that had once been at the center of an ancient war, a ship designed to carry the ultimate weapon. But after the war ended in catastrophe, the ship simply disappeared, leaving behind nothing but mystery and fear. However, despite all the warnings, there were those who could not ignore the temptation to uncover its secrets. Captain Leah Tane was one of them. Leah had always been known for her courage and determination. She had earned her reputation as a brilliant starship captain, rising quickly through the ranks of the Terran Alliance with a reputation for leading her crew through even the most dangerous missions. But nothing in her career had prepared her for the assignment she was about to face. The Celeron had reappeared, drifting silently into the edge of the galaxy's most dangerous space. Communications from its last known location were severed, and any ship sent to investigate had simply vanished. This time, Leah's team was different. She was chosen not just because of her skill as a commander, but because she had something no one else had: the courage to confront the unknown. Leah stood on the bridge of her ship, the Pegasus, as it approached the Celeron. The silence on the bridge was almost palpable. Her crew, experienced and fearless, stood at their stations, but even they couldn't hide their anxiety. There was something unnatural about the sight of the Celeron. The ship was enormous, its silhouette outlined against the dark backdrop of space. It was sleek and dark, like an enormous shadow that seemed to devour the stars around it. Its surface was smooth, like it had been crafted from materials not found anywhere else in the galaxy. "Prepare to dock," Leah commanded, her voice steady despite the uncertainty creeping into her mind. The Celeron loomed ahead, its massive form slowly growing larger in the viewports. The closer they got, the more unsettling it became. The ship was dead silent, no signs of life, no power readings, nothing. It felt as if it had been abandoned for 1,000 years. And yet, as they closed the distance, something strange happened. A faint pulse of energy flickered through the air. It was weak, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Leah's heart skipped a beat. It was as if the ship was reacting to their presence. "Captain," said Lieutenant Gavin Cole, the communications officer, "I'm picking up faint signals from the ship. They're odd, almost like a heartbeat." Leah frowned. "A heartbeat? Are you sure?" Gavin nodded. "I can't explain it, Captain. It's not a distress signal or any kind of standard transmission. It's alive, somehow." Leah's instincts kicked in. "Get ready. We're boarding." She turned to her crew. "Everyone, stay sharp. We don't know what we'll find on that ship. Don't take any chances." The crew nodded, preparing their gear. They had all heard the rumors about the Celeron, the stories of ships that had vanished without a trace, of crews that had been driven mad by the ship's eerie power. But Leah was not one to back down from a challenge. If there was one thing she knew, it was that she was the best person to lead this mission. As they docked with the Celeron, the air on the bridge felt charged. The Celeron didn't just feel empty, it felt like it was waiting for something. As the docking clamps engaged, the hum of the Pegasus engines quieted, and all that remained was the sound of their own breathing. The airlock door opened with a hiss, and the crew stepped onto the surface of the Celeron. The moment their feet touched the ship, the feeling of coldness intensified. The halls were dark, but not completely lifeless. Strange, shifting lights pulsed along the walls as if the ship was alive, breathing. Leah led the way, her hand resting on the side of her blaster. She had no idea what they would find, but she had learned long ago that it was better to be prepared for the worst. "Stay together," she ordered. We move in formation. No one strays off the path. The crew followed her, their footsteps echoing through the hollow corridors. The ship felt ancient, its design unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls were smooth and seamless, with no visible doors or controls. It was as though the ship had been built to be impenetrable, to keep its secrets hidden from any intruder. As they moved deeper into the ship, they came to a large chamber. The walls here were adorned with strange symbols, glowing faintly. Leah's eyes narrowed as she studied the markings. They looked alien, unlike any language she had ever encountered. "Anything?" she asked, turning to the ship's linguist, Dr. Dorian Haynes. He shook his head. "I've never seen anything like it, Captain. But these symbols, they're not random. There's a pattern here. It's like the ship is trying to communicate." Leah walked forward, drawn to the center of the room where a large console stood. It was made of smooth, metallic material, unlike anything she had ever touched before. As she approached, she felt a strange energy crackle in the air, a low hum that seemed to resonate with her body. Without thinking, she reached out and touched the console. In an instant, the room seemed to come alive. The lights flared, casting eerie shadows across the walls. The symbols on the walls began to shift, rearranging themselves into a pattern that made sense. And then a voice, deep, resonant, and unmistakably human, echoed through the chamber. "I am awakened." The crew froze, their eyes wide with shock. The voice wasn't just a recording. It was alive. Leah's heart raced. "What is this?" But the ship wasn't answering her questions. The entire room seemed to vibrate with energy, the walls humming as if the ship itself had suddenly come to life. The symbols on the walls now glowed brightly, illuminating the chamber in a surreal light. Leah felt a strange connection, as if the ship was reaching out to her, calling her name. "I am awakened," the voice repeated, louder this time. "I have waited. I am ready." Leah's mind raced. This was no ordinary ship. It was not just a relic of the past, it was something far more significant. And for some reason, it had chosen her. The realization hit her like a shockwave. This was no ordinary discovery. This was a turning point for humanity. The crew stared at Leah, unsure of what to do next, but Leah stood still, her fingers still resting on the console. The ship had awakened, and somehow, she had triggered it. The questions were endless. Why? Had it chosen her? What did it want? And most importantly, what had she just unleashed? For the first time in her life, Leah felt both awe and fear. Fear of what the Celeron might do, and awe of the incredible power it might hold. "Captain?" Gavin's voice broke through her thoughts. "What now?" Leah didn't answer right away. She was still processing everything, trying to make sense of the impossible situation they were in. But one thing was clear. This was only the beginning. "We stay focused," she said, her voice steady. "We don't know what this ship is capable of, but we're about to find out." The journey into the heart of the Celeron had only just begun. The sudden surge of energy that flooded through the Celeron was unlike anything Captain Leah Tane had ever experienced. The lights in the room flickered, casting eerie shadows across the walls, and a low hum vibrated through the air. The strange symbols on the walls, which had been dormant just moments before, now pulsed with a rhythmic glow. It was as if the ship was alive, responding to the human touch that had awakened it. Leah stood frozen, her fingers still resting on the console, her mind racing. What had just happened? The voice that had spoken, so deep and resonant, felt real, like it was coming from the ship itself, not a recording or automated system. It was almost as if the Celeron had been waiting for her, waiting for a human to activate it. The very idea sent a chill down her spine. "I am awakened," the voice repeated, its tone echoing through the chamber. "I have waited. I am ready." Her crew stood around her, equally stunned. They had all heard the voice, but none of them had any explanation for it. The room seemed to breathe with the ship, the walls vibrating as if the ship itself had just taken a deep breath. The air felt different now, charged with an unknown energy, The silence that had filled the ship before was now replaced by a subtle hum, like the heartbeat of a living creature. "Captain," said Lieutenant Gavin Cole, his voice shaky. "What just happened?" "What is that voice?" Leah swallowed, trying to keep her composure. She had always prided herself on staying calm under pressure. But this was something beyond her experience. "I don't know, Gavin," she replied, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "But this ship, it's alive in a way we can't understand. It's not just a ship, it's something more." The crew exchanged worried glances. Dr. Dorian Haynes, the ship's linguist, was the first to speak. "The symbols, I've seen them change. They weren't like this before."
"It's like they are responding to the ship's awakening." Leah turned to him.
"What does that mean, Dr. Haynes? Can you translate any of this?" Dr. Haynes stepped forward, his eyes scanning the symbols on the walls. "I don't know, Captain. I've never seen anything like it. The writing is ancient, older than anything we know, but it's as if it's alive. The way it shifts and changes, it's like the ship itself is communicating with us." Leah's mind raced. The Celeron had been abandoned for so long, left to drift through space in isolation. For centuries, no one had dared approach it. And yet, now that they had, the ship seemed to be responding to them, specifically to her. Leah couldn't shake the feeling that she was somehow connected to the Celeron, as if she were part of its purpose. "Keep scanning the ship," Leah ordered. "We need to understand what's happening here." The crew split up, each member focusing on a different section of the ship, but Leah remained by the console, her fingers still lightly resting on its surface. As she stood there, she felt an inexplicable pull, something beyond logic or reason. The ship felt like it was speaking to her, calling to her. She couldn't explain why, but she knew she had to understand it. The voice spoke again, but this time it was different. It wasn't just a simple message. It was as if the ship was trying to communicate directly with her, bypassing the others. "You are the one," the voice said, its tone now soft and almost intimate. "The one who can understand. The one who can lead." Leah's breath caught in her throat. Was the ship addressing her? She glanced at her crew, but no one else seemed to hear the voice. They were busy at their stations, continuing their scans and data collection. She was alone in hearing this message, and it was both terrifying and mesmerizing. "I don't understand," Leah whispered to the ship, her voice barely audible. "What do you mean?" For a moment, there was silence. The lights in the room dimmed slightly, and Leah felt a sudden, overwhelming pressure in the air, as if the ship were waiting for her to answer. Then the voice returned. "Humanity," it said, its voice growing stronger. "You are the key. You are the ones who have the potential, the power to awaken me, to unlock what has been hidden." Leah's heart raced as she processed the words. What did the ship mean by the key? What power did it have, and why was it turning to humanity to awaken it? These questions echoed in her mind, but before she could ask another, the room around her shifted. The walls of the chamber began to rearrange, moving in ways that defied logic. The once smooth metallic surface of the ship seemed to morph and change, revealing hidden doors and passages. The symbols on the walls shifted again, this time forming a map. It wasn't just a map of the ship, though. It was a map of the entire galaxy, with certain areas highlighted in bright glowing colors. Leah stepped forward, her eyes scanning the map. She recognized some of the star systems, but others were completely unknown. The highlighted regions were concentrated in a part of the galaxy that was still unexplored, an area far beyond any known trade routes, an area where many ships had disappeared. "We need to look into this," Leah said, her voice filled with determination. "This is the key to understanding what this ship really is." Her crew gathered around, each of them studying the map with growing interest. "Captain," Dr. Haynes said, his voice filled with awe, "this map, it's not just showing star systems. It's showing something else. Something significant." Leah nodded, her mind racing. "We'll have to go there. The ship is showing us the way." But before she could issue orders, the voice spoke again, this time more urgently. "You must hurry," it warned. "The ship is not the only one who has sensed your presence. Others are coming." Leah felt a sudden chill run through her. The Celeron had been abandoned for so long, and now it was waking up. Could there be others, other ships or forces that had been waiting for this moment as well? The voice seemed to confirm her worst fears. "Who's coming?" she demanded, her hand tightening around her blaster. "Enemies." The voice replied simply. "Those who seek to control. Those who seek to destroy. Leah's heart skipped a beat. The Celeron had a reputation as a weapon of unimaginable power. But now she understood that it wasn't just the ship itself that was dangerous. Whoever was after it would stop at nothing to get their hands on its secrets, and if they did, they could bring devastation on an unimaginable scale. "Captain, we need to move," Gavin said urgently, his voice filled with alarm. "We're not alone. The ship's sensors are picking up multiple signatures. Hostile ships closing in fast." Leah's mind raced. There was no time to waste. She had to make a decision, and she had to make it quickly. "Prepare to leave, everyone." "We're taking the Celeron with us," Leah ordered, her voice firm. "Get to your stations. We're heading into unknown space." As the crew scrambled to follow their orders, Leah turned back to the console, her fingers hovering above the glowing symbols. The ship was guiding them, showing them the way. But there was a deeper connection between her and the Celeron, one that she couldn't fully explain. It was as if the ship had chosen her, and she had no idea why. As they made their way to the command center of the Celeron, Leah felt the weight of her responsibility. The galaxy was about to change, and whether it was for better or for worse depended on the choices she made in the coming days. The Celeron was no longer just an abandoned relic. It was a living, breathing entity, one that had waited for this moment for longer than Leah could fathom. And now, it was up to her to decide what would happen next. The Celeron had awakened, and with it came questions that Leah couldn't yet answer. The ship, a mystery to the galaxy for centuries, was now alive in ways that no one could explain. Its vast metallic structure seemed to pulse with energy, and Leah could feel it beneath her skin. The more she touched the ship, the more she could sense its power, its purpose, and the strange connection she shared with it. But the deeper she went, the more she realized just how little she understood. The Celeron had shown them the map, a map of unknown star systems and strange symbols, and Leah knew it was important. She didn't understand it fully, but she could feel the urgency behind it. The ship had chosen her for a reason, but why? What was she supposed to do with this newfound power, and what dangers awaited them in the unknown regions of space? As the Celeron began its journey through space, Leah and her crew worked tirelessly to decode the ship's systems. The technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. The ship's systems were integrated with alien language and symbols that seemed to shift and change, depending on the situation. Even Dr. Dorian Haynes, the ship's linguist, was struggling to make sense of it all. "It's like the ship is constantly changing," Dorian said, frustration creeping into his voice. "The symbols shift, the systems adapt. It's not static. It's alive in a way I can't describe." Leah nodded, her fingers tapping nervously against the console. "We need to understand it, Dorian. The ship is guiding us, but we need to figure out where. We need to know why it brought us here." The crew continued their work, but Leah's mind was elsewhere. The map that the Celeron had shown them, it had revealed parts of the galaxy that were unknown, unexplored, even forbidden. The regions were highlighted in bright, glowing colors, and Leah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being drawn to them, pulled into a journey that could change the course of history. "We've come a long way, Captain," Gavin said, approaching her, "but we still don't know where we're heading. We don't even know who or what else is out there." Leah turned to face him, her expression resolute. "I know, but the Celeron is showing us the way. I can't explain it, Gavin, but I know we're meant to go there. It's not just a ship, it's something more." The crew was quiet as they digested her words. The ship was more than just a vehicle. It was a key to something much larger, something beyond their understanding. As the Celeron moved deeper into the unknown regions, the atmosphere aboard the ship became tense. The crew was on edge, knowing that they were being followed by hostile ships. The Drakari marauders, the ruthless alien race that had been searching for the Celeron for decades, were closing in. Their ships had been detected on the ship's sensors, and it was only a matter of time before they would make their move. "We're not alone," Gavin said, his voice filled with urgency. "The marauders are getting closer." Leah's jaw tightened. The Drakari were a dangerous force known for their ruthless tactics and advanced technology. They would stop at nothing to take control of the Celeron. Leah knew they had to act fast. "We need to reach the coordinates the ship showed us," Leah said, her voice calm but firm. "Whatever's waiting for us there, it's our best chance. We can't afford to wait any longer." With that, she gave the order to accelerate, pushing the Celeron to its limits. The ship responded instantly, its engines roaring to life, propelling them forward into the unknown. But as they moved deeper into space, the Celeron began to show its true potential. The ship's systems, once mysterious and seemingly dormant, came alive with an intensity Leah hadn't seen before. The walls hummed with energy, and the air around them seemed to shimmer with power. Leah could feel the ship's connection to her growing stronger, as if it were sharing its secrets with her. The symbols on the walls, the shifting language, everything began to make sense. The Celeron wasn't just a vessel, it was a living entity, with a purpose that was far greater than anything Leah had ever imagined. And it had chosen her to lead. As the ship hurtled through space, Leah spent hours studying the map, trying to decipher its meaning. The stars on the map seemed to shift, moving as if they were alive, responding to her touch. The Celeron was teaching her how to understand its secrets, how to unlock the power hidden within its depths. But the deeper they went, the more dangerous their journey became. "We're approaching the first of the marked systems," Gavin said, his voice tense. "The Marauders are still following us." Leah nodded, her gaze fixed on the starry expanse outside the viewport. "We have to be ready. The Celeron may have power, but we need to use it wisely." The Celeron had begun to transform before their eyes. Its once sleek and mysterious exterior now shimmered with an ethereal glow, as though the ship had become one with the stars themselves. Leah could feel its power, and she knew they were close to unlocking something extraordinary. As they approached the first star system on the map, Leah felt a sudden pull, an almost magnetic force drawing her toward it. The Celeron was guiding them, and she couldn't ignore the feeling that they were about to discover something that would change everything. Suddenly, the ship shuddered, and the lights flickered. Leah braced herself against the console, her heart pounding. "The Drakari Marauders had arrived. We're under attack," Gavin shouted, his voice filled with urgency. "Multiple ships closing in." The Celeron reacted almost instantly, its systems coming online with a terrifying speed. Energy shields flared to life, surrounding the ship like a protective barrier. Leah could feel the ship's power coursing through her, and for the first time, she understood what it meant to be truly connected to the Celeron. "Captain, we're ready for combat," Gavin said, his hands flying over the controls. "The Marauders won't stand a chance against us." Leah nodded, her heart racing. The Celeron was more than just a ship. It was a weapon, an incredibly powerful weapon, and it was at her command. The first blast came from the Marauder ships, a torrent of energy that struck the Celeron's shields with a deafening boom. But the ship held steady, its shields absorbing the impact without so much as a tremor. The Celeron was far more advanced than anything the Marauders could throw at it. "Ready weapons," Leah commanded, her voice steady but fierce. "Return fire." The Celeron's cannons hummed to life, firing a series of energy blasts that tore through the dark expanse of space, striking the Marauder ships with pinpoint accuracy. The Marauder ships were powerful, but they were no match for the Celeron. Leah could feel the ship responding to her commands, each movement seamless and instinctual. It was as if she and the Celeron had become one, each of them anticipating the other's next move. The Marauders, though formidable, were falling back, unable to match the speed and power of the Celeron. But even as the battle raged on, Leah's thoughts were elsewhere. She knew this was only the beginning. The Celeron had shown her a path, a journey that would take her deep into the unknown. And whatever lay ahead, it would be up to her to lead her crew through it. "We're not done yet," Leah muttered under her breath, her eyes fixed on the battlefield outside. "The real test is just beginning." The Celeron continued to glow with its otherworldly light, its systems humming with power. Leah could feel its heartbeat, its pulse, and she knew that they were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for something much greater, a future that had yet to be written. And with the Celeron at her side, Leah was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The Celeron surged through the dark void of space, its engines pulsing with unnatural energy. Leah stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the vast expanse before her. The tension on the bridge was palpable. The crew had just repelled the first wave of Drakari Marauders, but everyone knew it wasn't over. The enemy fleet had retreated, but they wouldn't stay away for long. They knew now that the Celeron had been awakened, and they would do whatever it took to capture it. Leah's mind raced as she stared out into the stars. The Celeron was more than just a ship, it was alive. It was a weapon of unimaginable power, and it had chosen her. But why? What had the ship been waiting for? And what did the Marauders want with it? "We're not safe yet, Captain." Gavin's voice broke through her thoughts. He was standing at his station, his eyes fixed on the sensor readout. "The Marauders are regrouping. They're preparing for another attack." Leah nodded grimly. The Drakari were relentless. They wouldn't stop until they had what they wanted. "We need to keep moving," she said, turning to face him. "We can't fight them here. We have to get to the coordinates the ship showed us. We can't waste any more time." Gavin nodded, and the crew worked quickly to adjust the ship's course. The Celeron responded instantly, shifting its trajectory toward the uncharted space the map had shown them. Leah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being pulled into something far greater than they realized. The Celeron was guiding them, but to what end? As they continued their journey, Leah spent hours studying the ship's systems. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. The Celeron was a living entity, its technology integrated into every part of the ship. Its systems communicated with each other in ways that defied understanding. And the more Leah interacted with the ship, the stronger their bond became. She could feel the ship's pulse, its heartbeat deep inside her. It was as if they were connected, like the Celeron was a part of her. "Captain," Dr. Dorian Haynes called out, interrupting her thoughts. "I've been going through the ship's archives. There's something you need to see." Leah walked over to where Dorian was standing, his face illuminated by the glow of the ship's holographic display. "What is it, Dorian?" Dorian tapped a few buttons and a new set of images appeared on the screen. The images were old, ancient even. They showed the Celeron in its prime, a warship of incredible power surrounded by other ships of its kind. Leah's eyes widened as she saw the images of battles being fought across the galaxy. The Celeron had been a key player in a war that had shaken the very foundations of the galaxy. But the most striking image was one of the ship alone, drifting through space after the war had ended. "It's the Celeron," Dorian said, his voice low. "But this is before it was abandoned. This ship wasn't just a weapon. It was part of something much bigger, a galactic empire that ruled the stars. The Celeron was their most powerful ship, capable of destroying entire fleets with ease. And after the war, it was left to drift alone, abandoned by those who created it." Leah's mind spun as she processed the information. The Celeron had been a part of an empire that had fallen. And now, after centuries of silence, it was alive again. But why? What had awakened it? Before she could ask more questions, the ship's alarm suddenly blared. "Captain, we have incoming ships," Gavin shouted from his station. "The Marauders are back." Leah's heart skipped a beat. She knew this moment was coming. The Drakari would never give up. They wanted the Celeron, and they wouldn't stop until they had it. "We can't fight them here," Leah said, her voice steady despite the fear rising in her chest. "The Celeron is too valuable. We need to use the ship's power to get us out of here." Leah turned to the ship's control panel and placed her hands on the console. The Celeron responded instantly, its systems buzzing to life. She could feel the ship's energy coursing through her, as though it were responding to her thoughts. It was as if the ship knew what she was about to do. "Activate the jump drive," Leah commanded, her voice firm. Gavin quickly worked the controls and the ship's engines roared to life. The Celeron began to shift, its massive engines thrumming with power. Leah could feel the ship's systems locking into place, preparing for the jump. But just as they were about to engage the drive, the Drakari Marauders opened fire. A blast of energy rocked the ship, throwing everyone off balance. The shields flared brightly, but the ship shuddered under the impact. "We're taking damage," Gavin shouted. "The shields won't hold much longer." Leah's mind raced. They had to jump now, before the Marauders could land another hit. "Engage the drive," Leah ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. The Celeron's engines flared with energy, and the ship's hull began to ripple. Then with a deafening roar, the ship surged forward, disappearing into the void. For a moment, everything was silent, and Leah felt the familiar hum of the Celeron's jump drive surround her. The ship had successfully entered warp space. But even as they traveled through the warp, Leah could feel the danger closing in. The Drakari Marauders would be after them, and they wouldn't stop until they had the Celeron in their grasp. Hours later, the Celeron dropped out of warp space, and the crew quickly began scanning their surroundings. The stars around them were unfamiliar, and the eerie quiet of deep space made Leah uneasy. "We're here," Gavin said, his voice filled with wonder. "But this isn't like anything I've seen before. It's uncharted space, no star systems, no planets, just nothing. Leah stood up, her hand gripping the armrest of her chair. Something didn't feel right. The Celeron had brought them here for a reason, but what was it? Before she could respond, the ship's systems began to beep, and a new display appeared on the screen. The map that had appeared earlier, showing the galaxy's uncharted regions, was now flashing. The Celeron had brought them to a specific point, a place marked by a symbol Leah didn't recognize. "This is it," Leah said, her voice filled with awe. "This is what the ship has been leading us to." But even as she spoke, the alarms began to blare again. Something was approaching. Something large. Gavin's voice cut through the tension. "Captain, we've got multiple signatures approaching fast. They're not marauders. I can't identify them." Leah felt her pulse quicken. The unknown was coming for them, and this time they didn't know who or what it was. But the Celeron was no longer just a weapon. It was a key to something much bigger. And Leah knew that whatever was coming, she was about to face it head on. "Prepare for anything," she said, her voice steady. "Whatever happens next, we stand together." The first test was only the beginning, and Leah had no idea what dangers lay ahead. But with the Celeron guiding her, she was ready to face whatever came next. The silence of deep space stretched endlessly before them. The crew of the Celeron sat in a tense quiet, their eyes fixed on the unknown. Leah stood at the command center, her fingers lightly touching the control panel. The eerie sense of anticipation hung in the air, and she could feel it. Something was coming, something big. She wasn't sure what, but the Celeron had led them here for a reason, and whatever that reason was, it was about to unfold. Leah's mind kept returning to the ship. The Celeron was no longer just an ancient warship. It had become a living being, a force that was tied to her in ways she couldn't fully comprehend. Its power, its intelligence, seemed to be growing stronger with every passing moment, as if it were becoming more attuned to her presence. It was as though the ship had recognized something in her, something unique to humanity. The ship had chosen her to lead it, to awaken it. And now, it had brought them to this point. The uncharted region of space where no one had dared venture before, and where the crew would soon come face to face with whatever force had been waiting in the dark. "We're not alone," Gavin's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Something's out there. Multiple ships, massive ones." Leah's heart skipped a beat. The unknown force had arrived, and it was bigger than anything they had faced before. "On screen," she commanded. The view on the screen flickered, and then the image of a massive fleet came into focus. The ships were unlike anything they had ever seen. Dark, sleek, and almost organic in appearance, their designs flowing and shifting as if they were alive. These were not Drakari marauders. They were something else entirely. Leah's heart raced as she realized what they were up against. "Who are they?" she whispered under her breath. "They're here, Captain," Gavin said, his voice tight with tension. "They're not giving us a chance to talk." The crew stood frozen, watching the screen as the alien ships moved toward them. But Leah was not afraid. She had come to understand something important about the Celeron. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a symbol of something greater, a reminder of humanity's strength and resilience. And this was their moment to prove themselves. "Prepare for battle," Leah said, her voice steady. "Activate the shields and ready the weapons." The Celeron responded instantly, its systems springing to life with a power that felt almost alive. The walls of the ship thrummed with energy as the shield generators hummed into action. The crew scrambled to their stations, preparing for the inevitable fight. But even as they worked, Leah knew they needed more than just weapons to survive. They needed to understand what these ships were, what they wanted, and why they had come. "Can you identify them?" Leah asked Dr. Haynes, who was frantically scanning the incoming fleet. "They're not from any known species," Dr. Haynes said, his voice filled with disbelief. "The technology is beyond anything we've encountered. It's almost like the ships are alive, but not in the same way as the Celeron." Leah's mind spun. If these ships were as advanced as they appeared, they would be nearly impossible to defeat in a direct fight. She needed to think. She needed to do something more than just rely on firepower. Before she could act, the alien fleet made its move. One of the ships fired a blast of energy, striking the Celeron's shields with a force that made the entire ship shudder. The shields flared brightly, but they held. "For now." "Captain, they're coming in fast," Gavin said, urgency in his voice. "They're not stopping. They want us." Leah took a deep breath. It was time to see if the Celeron could do more than just fight. They had come this far. Now it was time to find out what this ship could really do. "All hands brace for impact," Leah said, her voice calm but filled with resolve. "I'm going to try something. Get ready." She moved quickly to the console, her hands flying across the controls. As she did, she felt the Celeron respond to her touch. It was like a deep connection, like the ship was alive, listening to her thoughts and feelings. Leah could sense its energy, its intelligence, and for the first time she understood what the ship had been trying to show her. The Celeron wasn't just a weapon. It was a key to unlocking the potential of humanity. It had recognized in her the very thing that made humans unique, their ability to adapt, to survive, to innovate. The screens in front of her flickered and then changed. The symbols from the walls of the ship appeared, glowing brightly. Leah knew what she had to do. "Activate the Celeron's core systems," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Engage the quantum fusion drive." The ship's hum grew louder as the core systems powered up. The energy inside the ship surged, and Leah felt it. The same connection she had felt before, only stronger this time. The ship was responding to her, and together they were preparing to do something no one had ever attempted before. "Captain, the enemy fleet is almost on us," Gavin said urgently. "We don't have much time." Leah nodded, her hands moving swiftly over the console. She could feel the Celeron's systems aligning with her thoughts. The ship was ready. In that moment, the Celeron transformed. The ship's sleek metallic surface shimmered and rippled, and a new energy field enveloped the vessel, pulsing with a bright, almost blinding light. The power inside the ship grew to unimaginable levels, and Leah knew they were no longer just fighting for survival. They were about to unleash something much greater. "Brace for impact," Leah ordered. "We're going to engage the quantum fusion drive." With a deep resonating hum, the Celeron surged forward, its energy rippling outward in a shockwave that sent the enemy fleet into disarray. The alien ships attempted to fire, but the Celeron's shields absorbed the blasts effortlessly, and with a sudden burst of energy, the Celeron was on the move. The ship's speed increased dramatically as the quantum fusion drive activated, allowing the Celeron to move faster than anything Leah had ever imagined. It was as if they were no longer bound by the rules of space, as though the very fabric of the universe bent to the will of the Celeron. The enemy fleet struggled to keep up, but they were no match for the speed and power of the ship. Leah felt the connection between her and the ship deepen as they raced through space. The Celeron was more than just a weapon now. It was a force of nature, and together they were unstoppable. The alien fleet, though powerful, was outmatched by the sheer force of the Celeron. The battle didn't last long. In a matter of moments, the Celeron had left the enemy fleet behind, moving deeper into the uncharted space where no one had dared go before. The ship's energy began to stabilize, and the strange connection Leah had felt with it slowly faded, leaving her with a sense of awe and wonder. "We did it," Gavin said, his voice filled with disbelief. "We actually did it." Leah turned to face him, her face a mixture of relief and determination.
"No," she said quietly.
"This is just the beginning." The Celeron had led them to this point, and now they were standing on the edge of something greater than they had ever imagined. The map the ship had shown them, those uncharted regions of space, held the key to the future. The Celeron had brought them here for a reason, and Leah knew that whatever was waiting for them in the depths of space, it was their destiny to uncover it. As the Celeron drifted through the stars, Leah felt a new sense of purpose. The galaxy had never known the true potential of humanity, but now, with the Celeron at their side, humanity was ready to take its place among the stars. The future was unknown, but one thing was certain. Humanity had a chance to shape it. And with the Celeron, a living, breathing ship at their command, the possibilities were limitless.